Glenn, where were you born and where did you grow up?
Man, I'm a military brat, so that's a complicated question, man.
Let's
I
start
was
with where
actually
you were born.
yeah, I was actually born in Germany. My father was in the military, so he was in the army. So born in Germany, man. I lived all over, man. I grew up anywhere from Panama, Puerto Rico, all across the U.S. The majority of my life, in my later teen years, was in the Florida area, in Polk County, Auburndale, and Tampa areas.
Okay. And talk to me a little bit about the culture in your family and in your community. And I guess maybe your community was a lot of different places. But when it came to sports when you were a kid, what sports did were you sort of surrounded by, were you exposed to when you were young?
When I was younger, I actually started playing basketball and baseball at age 4 or 5. When I was younger, like I said, I was in the military. I grew up. We bounced around a lot, so the majority of the places that we live were either European countries or Latin American countries for the most part. And they really didn't have American football. No one knew American football. We didn't play American football. My Both of my parents are from Puerto Rico. They're born and raised in Puerto Rico. In that country, like there isn't a lot of football. There is no leagues out there that really have football at that time. There were kids would come out, but we all had basketball. We had baseball. My mom was actually my first coach in both sports. She coached me in baseball and basketball. I grew up playing those sports all the way until the end of high school. I was a 3-4 sport athlete. I actually didn't play football until um, 11th grade.
How did you get exposed to football? How did you learn about it, start playing it, that kind of thing?
Well, in like I said, when I started to live in Florida, the majority of my friends, all of them played football, and it's kind of a funny story. Um, it we would play basketball every Sunday is how I got started. We would play basketball every Sunday. It was my 10th grade going into my 11th grade year. We'd play at the local elementary school, and it was just basically a dunk fest because the rims were low, and we would just go out there and have fun. Well, my high school had their 7-on-7 tournament versus another school that Saturday. They got canceled due to weather, so they moved it over to Sunday. So we were still going to go out there and play basketball, but the majority of the guys that I played with, they all played football. So they had this 7-on-7 tournament that they had to do. So I was like, all right, man, I'll just go with you guys. So I ended up going with them to go watch them. I was in my basketball shoes, had a basketball in my hand. I sat in the stands, and they were short, some guys. So a couple of my friends asked if I'd come down and play, and I was like, nope, I didn't want to do it. I was like, no, I was scared. I was a little skinny Puerto Rican kid that's never really, played football. I see it all the time, and I was athletic, but I was scared to get hit. To be honest with you. And the coach came up and said, "Hey, listen, you won't get hit. This is like 7 ounce, like tag. They won't hit you or anything like that. But I'll tell you what to do." And you go out there. And sure enough, I was like, "All right, I'll do it." I didn't even have cleats. I was in basketball shoes when I tell you this. And I went out there and I did really good. I had like 2 touchdowns. I had an interception, and all summer the coach was on me like, "Hey man, please come out and play. Come out and play." And my parents didn't agree with it because my I didn't want to do it, first of all, because I was scared, and my parents didn't want it because of the stigma that they had of football being a tough sport. You're going to get hurt. You're little. You don't know how to play. So I didn't do it, and all the way until like the first day of school, the coach was like, "Listen, just play JV and give it a shot, and if you like it, stick to it. If not, you can quit." I was like, "Fine, I'll do it," because he was like, I mean, he was literally bugging me every day. And I ended up playing on JV. I did good that Thursday night, that first JV game Thursday night. He brought me in the office the next day, asked me how I felt. I was like, "No, I felt good, man. It feels good." He goes, "Good, because you're suiting up tonight too." And he moved me up to varsity that same night. And first ball I touched in varsity was a kickoff return. Never caught a punt, never caught a kickoff in my life. and our starting running back went down, and he was the kick returner, and it threw me back there. And I remember looking at the other guy next to me, and I was like, "Hey, if they end up, if the ball goes to, if they kick the ball, you get the ball. I'll block. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I was like, I'll block. Just get the ball." And he looked at me. He goes, "Man, you think they're gonna kick it to me? I'm the starting running back now. They're gonna kick it to you. They don't know you." And sure enough, they kick it to me. I run left, cut back, and took it to the house. First time I touched the ball on varsity. And ever since then, it was like, all right, man, this ain't as bad as I thought it would be.
So currently, about less than 1% of current NFL players identify as Hispanic or Latino, and yet Hispanic, Latino people who identify as those things make up about 17% of the United States population. So there's a big disparity there. Does that surprise you at all?
Oh, no, it does not surprise me at all. Like I said, I lived in a lot of places growing up and just traveling and stuff. And when you exit, like where I live now, where in this part of the country, South Florida, where it's just like you get everything, and you go to Michigan, the population of Hispanics is not a lot. You go to Colorado, Denver, same thing. The population of Hispanics really isn't a lot. And when you look at those different populations, the majority of those are of the Mexican culture. And down there, what's big is soccer. And in the majority of Latin American countries, it's soccer, baseball. Those are the big two where, your families, they come over here and migrate over and come for a better life. That's all they know. They don't know football. There is no football league in Puerto Rico or Colombia or any of those South American countries, but you'll see a soccer ball anywhere. You'll see a basketball or a baseball anywhere. And I'm speaking from my experience with my parents. They didn't understand football. They didn't know it. They just see it for what it looked like. Brutal sport, uh, people just hitting each other, and they didn't want their kids playing that. I don't blame them for it. And it really is a cultural thing. It really is that, we're just not exposed to it. We don't know much about the game. And then when you come here and your kids start to make friends and get exposed to it and start to learn it, that's when they start to kind of, dip their toes in it and start to do it. It was definitely a roller coaster, but you know what? It taught me a lot. It wasn't easy. It wasn't something that, I wasn't one of those guys that was a first round pick, or heck, I was undrafted. I had to fight every day, going to work every day with the mentality that, hey, there's someone out here, they're getting somebody to come take your job. So you got to come out there every day with that fight mentality. They sent me out to NFL Europe. I did NFL Europe. I remember when I was in camp in NFL Europe, training camp. My coach was Alvin Harper, old receiver for the Dallas Cowboys when Michael Irvin, those glory days. Um, he told when I made the team, he told me straight up, he was like, "Man, you weren't even supposed to make the team." He goes, "You were just gonna be a camp body. We brought you in just to have some bodies here. We already knew that we were gonna have these three guys over here that we wanted to get." I beat all three of them out and started over all three of them. And that was just the mentality that I had to create. I didn't have that in college. In college, I was better than I went to Division II school, so I was better than most the people I went up against. So I never had that real work hard everyday ethic. I didn't have that at that time. But I realized that if I needed, I was no longer that guy. Now I'm the little fish swimming in the big pond. At that point, I needed to change something. And I was like, if I'm not going to be faster than you, I'm not going to be bigger than you, I'm not going to be stronger than you. I'm going to outwork you. I'm gonna learn everything. I'm gonna learn every position. And I made that was what I think separated me from a lot of people. Is they give me one position, I learned my position, but then I learned everyone else's position. I was almost like a quarterback. Like I can get in there and tell you exactly what everyone else was gonna do. And that was the mentality that I instilled in myself and I learned to do and go out there every day and execute it in that fashion. That was how I got my opportunities. In Detroit, I think it was Roy Williams went down and he was like the Z. I was the X. I was the other receiver. And he went down and they needed somebody. It was during practice, during camp, and they needed somebody to come in. They're like, all right, come in. Roy's down. And other receivers were kind of talking and stuff, and no one got in. I ran out there. I remember running out there with my helmet. I was sitting in the back just watching because I was, like we had 10 receivers. I was like the 11th guy. I wasn't getting no reps. I was just sitting there, but I was watching. And he went down. I seen no one go in. I grabbed my helmet and I remember running out there and I put my helmet on and I got in there and ran the play. And they threw a slant to me and I caught it. And the coach started yelling at me, "Hey, get out, Martinez. You're not even a Z. Get out the way." And Steve Mariucci was the head coach. And I remember I took my helmet off at that time and I looked at the coach and I said, "Yeah, the Z went down. Nobody else got in, so I got in." And Mariucci looked at me and he saw me. He looked at the coach and he goes, "And you know what? They gave me another opportunity after that. And then another opportunity. And I just took advantage of those opportunities that they gave me. And it ended up being good."
When you were playing, did you think much about your family, your heritage, your representation of your culture when you were in the league as one of the few players, with a Latin American background? Did you think about that much when you were playing?
Honestly, I did not much when I did. It wasn't until after my career that, you sit back and you reflect and you're like, man, there really isn't a lot of people like me to do it that has done it. When I go back to Puerto Rico and I go back to visit family, that's when it really hits when people start to, they talk and oh man, there's no one here. And they want your neighbors to meet you. They want everyone else to meet you. And, over here, it's, I live around a lot of former athletes. There's a lot of former athletes out here. So people see that more down where we live at now. But when my career was done, that's when I started to reflect on that and see it as, damn, I did something not a lot of people have done.